Well, good afternoon, church family. I want to, first of all, say thank you for all of those who have shown concerns and made phone calls and sent texts. If we didn't answer everyone and if we did not answer every call, I'm going to take this opportunity this evening to give you as much information as I possibly can concerning your pastor and my family, who recently had a good run-in with the COVID virus. But before we start, I want to give thanks to God for his favor and kindness to our church family and to us personally, my own personal family, because no matter what problems we have, I can honestly say I've learned there can always be worse. And so I have a goal tonight, and that is, the goal is we go through life's experiences. Someone said that experiences will teach you some things, and if it does, you want to take those opportunities to teach others. So I want to explain what happened. I want to explain how it happened, and I want to talk to you about how it has impacted our family. And then also it will have an impact upon our church because of decisions that we've made about when to start or not start service. So this has been a learning time for me personally and for my family as well. But let me just pray first, and then we'll get started. Lord, thank you for this evening to speak to the church family and friends who are watching. And then, God, as we are sharing and impacting life's experiences, the things that we've gone through, Lord, we pray that there'll be teachable moments in this as well. Thank you for this opportunity to be with the saints. In Jesus' name, amen. Several weeks ago, I had a brother-in-law who's been married to my sister 64 years. So he's really more than a brother-in-law. He has been so long time around us since I was a baby, and he's been more obviously like a brother. When I was born, it was my sister, Jean, and this brother-in-law, Jimmy. She had taken care of me, helping Mama with me as a baby, that they both asked Mom when they married and moved away if they could take me with them because they'd gotten so used to taking care of me. So my sister and my brother-in-law wanted to raise me as their child. My mama said, "You have lost your mind," and I love my mama. She said no to that, and unequivocally. She knew that that was not supposed to be the way. She was the mama, and she did a great job. But I was just thinking the fact that both of them wanted to raise me as their child. Their children are jealous knowing that I would have been their first, not firstborn, but their first child. But at any rate, on his death, which he was 85, he'd had a good number of years. He was a saved man, had many times the witness talk to him down through the years. He knew the Lord, served as a deacon in his church, sang in the men's chorus, cut the grass for the church, all those works that you do. And again, I admired him for his spiritual walk, but also admired him that he and my sister were married for 64 years. That tells you they put the work in to make that marriage work. They're the parents of 4 children, 3 daughters, 1 son. And so when he got sick, we knew he was going downhill. My sister's original plan is that she would do just the funeral, and then everybody would get together at a later date due to the circumstances for a memorial service. And many are choosing to do that. That's a teachable moment of what do we do when we have a loss in our family. Some people just choose to have the funeral, and then a later date gather together when this thing is a little bit clearer as far as the virus. That was their plans, but because Jimmy was still alive and with these children, they wanted to see him before he passed. They didn't want to just come after he died. All of them flew in and drove in and came to where they were in Pensacola, Florida. And so they were there with their dad. My sister was with her husband when he breathed his last, family surrounded by family love. And then they then reasoned, since they were there was no need to go away and then come back at a later date when everybody was there. So that's what changed the dynamics of their original plan. And so upon her request, she asked that we would, the brothers, I have a baby brother in Texas, my brother in Arkansas, me, we're close to him, so she wanted us to come. All three of us are preachers, and to be a part. Well, how can you say no to your sister's request to come and help her put away a loved one? So we went. Now, we practiced everything in going at the hotels, the restaurants we stopped in, and I'm giving you the background so you'll know how we arrived at where we are. And so we practiced everything, even at the funeral, the services, the graveside, the distances, all of that. But, saints, where we dropped the ball, and I can see very clearly, was we had a repast at the home. After everything was over, nobody there was but family. And there were a couple of things. One, we were trying to help the family with their grief, my sister and her children and their husbands and the grands. The other thing is, we had been, without seeing each other for so long, it just felt good to be around family. And then also, thirdly, most of us had been locked away where we've been locked away in our places, so it almost felt like freedom to be out. And all would have been well if everybody had been safe and healthy, but we did have one or two in our midst, and we placed no blame, we sought no sources, but we had someone who came inadvertently that had contacted the virus, and that's how it began to spread. And because we're having a repast, you can't eat with your mask on. And then after that, it became pretty loosey-goosey for us. And so we sort of dropped the ball in that place. Every place else we were good except there. This is family. And I give you this is because you've got to practice cautions around groups, whether they're total strangers or whether they're people you know and you grew up with. And so after we left there, coming back home, my brother and I drove, and I let him off in Memphis, and he went on to Arkansas. We began to get word filtering around back to us that someone had tested positive, and they thought everybody should be tested. And as we went through the testing process, of the 19 to 20 people who were there, which was all family, 16 of the family members, including me, tested positive. And the moment we knew that we tested positive, we began to do things that we need to do to isolate ourselves. Someone asked, well, did Geneva go? Nope, she didn't go. And when we both were tested, she tested negative and I tested positive, and I was so happy for that. And so we isolated ourselves. She moved up, I stayed down, so we went through the things that we needed to do there. And so this has been a learning experience. And while there were, people want to know, Pastor, what did you go through? What do you feel? My symptoms have been, I only had two, and they were minor. One, I had some chills for 1 or 2 nights in the evenings, and I didn't pay much attention to it because I'd been riding my bicycle, sweating outside, and I thought maybe when I took a shower or something, that might have been the reason for it. Had that for 2 evenings, just in the evenings. I began to sense a little difference in my smell and taste. Not that I ever lost it, but a little metallic. That's the only way to explain it. It didn't affect how food tasted to me or anything that I drank, just the fact that I was aware of it. So I knew that those 2 things were potential flags. One of them would have been enough, but both of them said, yep, you've probably been exposed. And so we, with the testing, I tested positive, Geneva tested negative, and then they told us to go into quarantine so many days, and we've already done that and passed that stage. But I want to let you know how quickly the virus spread, and then how far. Those who were at the family funeral, they began to show symptoms, some of them within 2 to 3 days. And they varied. The range of what everybody dealt with, including my own, it varied. Some lost their total sense of smell. Some lost their total taste. There were other issues, like if you have a flu, aches, headaches, pains, fevers, chills, just a slew of things. And nobody got all of them, but everybody got a little bit of something. And the spread was from Texas, where we think it came from, to Florida, to Arkansas, to Missouri, to Iowa, and back through Texas again. So we saw a very rapid spread, and also California. One of my nephews went home and he went to go eat dinner when he got back with his daughters, and his daughters contacted it from him. So we saw about a 6 or 7 state spread in a matter of less than 4 or 5 days. That's just how quickly and how fast and how far this particular virus can spread among even a close-knit family. In addition to this, one of my nephews, it's my oldest niece, their oldest daughter's husband, went into ICU with, he got COVID pneumonia. So it went pretty aggressive, but he has been very sick in the past. And so his body was already weak. And just as they say, if you already have immunity issues, it makes you more subject to this thing being more aggressive. So he went into ICU with COVID pneumonia. And as of 2 days ago, this is Wednesday, on Monday, finally moved him out of ICU back to something a little, it's shorter than being in a regular room, but somewhere in between that. And the last words we heard were, if he continues to improve with his oxygen and the clots that do show up, then they were gonna release him in just a matter of 3 to 4 days. So we're hoping by Friday or Saturday he will be home. I am taking the time to walk through this, church family, because I want you to know this thing can move fast. I've never had a problem believing how serious the virus is. I've always believed it was real. I have been puzzled why people have been in denial that this thing is some kind of a made-up joke, a hoax. I have not understood that. If there is another virus out here, it's a virus of stupidity. And I have never understood why people treat this thing as though it's not real, and even if they do, it can affect everybody but them. So I've not had a problem in my belief, and I hope that we've not had a problem in our practice. But I can now say, not that I believe something, I know something. And with that knowledge of what it can mean to you personally, we're trying to use that information to help folks. I've had some pastors who were telling me, preacher, we're going to start up. What do you think? And I said, listen, I can't tell you what to do. You have to do what you're led. But let me give you my personal family experience. And I've had preachers say, I called the right person at the right time because this helped me. We have a family in our church whose brother-in-law passed away. And we called and gave our condolences to the family and spoke to them personally. I spoke to them on the phone, at least the brother of the brother who passed away. And as I talked with him, I said, let me just share with you what we have just gone through. And he listened, as well as the brother who's with him. And as they're talking about having a funeral for their other brother, I told them exactly everything we'd gone through, and I told them where we dropped the ball, where I know we let our guards down at the repast and getting close. They chose to do everything that they were going to do as far as the funeral and graveside and limited number and spacing, but they chose not to do a repast or get together for eating because of the data I was able to share with them. I'm not saying there would have been a problem. They just took it. Why create a problem if we don't have to have that kind of thing take place at a wrong time? I'm taking the time to share this with all of my church family because I love you, and I am sorry we've had to go through this, but at the same time, if you go through something, you may as well learn life's lessons, and we've tried to learn them. All of my brothers and I, we're talking, we're communing. My sister, and by the way, my sister whose husband died, she did test positive. She spent several days in the hospital, and due to her age and already her frail condition, an abundance of cautions was given to watch her. But thank God she's home. And so out of the 20, one is still in the hospital, and hopefully that's going to change soon. But I can tell you it didn't have to be this way. We feel that for some unknown reason, we've experienced some favor in that we know situations where it is just not, it doesn't end with the news that people went through this and they turned out well. We may have that, we may not, but we're thanking God for the favor that he's given us and the things he's taught us. And I want to remind all of us we're not invincible. Germs don't care if you're Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, Episcopalian. A germ doesn't care, and it doesn't care if you're Republican or Democrat. This thing is serious. So we take it as such. Now, hear me well. I'm still not fearful. I don't ever want to be a person who's controlled by fear. But I am a rational person. And so because of this experience, I'm going to take the things that God has taught me to help others. And obviously this will probably affect our church, not out of fear, but out of the experience of it. And it simply lets me know that one person can change the dynamics of a family. It can change the dynamics of a church. Even though you have all the good intentions in the world, it can still have a negative impact, as we've experienced with the COVID in our family. But we're thankful. Hear me well. We're not complaining. God knows what he's doing and why. I even tried to understand why my symptoms were so mild. And if you've been concerned, Pastor never was sick. Now, some people sent some food over. They thought we were really down low. And I want to say thank you. I ate it. You hear what I'm saying? Now, when I'm well, I still want you to send some stuff over. I have lost weight, so if my face looks small, it's not because of the COVID. I hope my face looks small. Hint, hint. I did lose some weight, but that's because I've been riding a bicycle 5-6 miles, trying to do that every day and lose weight on purpose. And I've been able to lose some. Now, keeping it off is going to be the issue. But I said, let me get my body healthy. And I've been doing that in addition to other things, cutting back on sweets, because you only get one body. And I want this one to be as healthy and a clean and a good vessel for the Lord to use as long as possible. One day that'll end, but until then, we want to do the best we can. Now, someone brought by yesterday, and I'll leave them unnamed. There'll be a mystery person. But I haven't cooked any pecan pies or anything like that in a long time. But somebody brought me by some little small pecan pies, baked homemade pecan pies, the little small ones. They're not the ones you buy in the store in the package. These were homemade. And I was doing good on my weight until yesterday. So I want to say thank you. Unfortunately, my eyes got the best of me. And so I ate a good deal of those. So now I've got to go ride, instead of 5 miles, I got to go ride 10. I think I'm trying to be transparent with you and as open as I can. But I want you to know Pastor's fine. I'm healthy. I'm out of the quarantine. Geneva's good. No issues there. We're just hopefully a little bit wiser than this thing than we were going in it. We believed what we believe. Now we believe something. And we know some things. So if I can be a help to you, I would more than try to. And then also, we want to continue to pray for the family members that are sick. Not just my family, but there are others. Understand there's been some family members who died from this, even in our church. So we're more sensitive to what this is all about. But I will take this time to say this. I may have ducked the COVID as far as its bad residual effects. But you do know that we live in a body that is going through constant decay. Constant. And we're aging in this body. I can remember when my brother-in-law and I used to run around Cleveland. He was older, but we would run around in Cleveland together. And it seems like that was yesterday. But he's not here today. And the reason being, he died at age 85. It wasn't from COVID. the time that God gives us, it caught up with it. So I want to just let you know that we may be healthy today. Our bodies are going to break down because of various things. And I just want to say, please be ready. We don't know what's going to take us out of here. While we are running from the COVID, you've got people dying in car wrecks. And so heart attacks and other things. That's not a fear factor. That's a factor. And what we want to do is make sure that we convince everybody to be ready. I took my wife walking with me 2 days ago. I decided instead of riding, we'd walk, show her the trail that I ride. And while we was riding, a young lady caught up with us. And we were walking slow, and she was stepping on it. So when she caught up with us, she began to ask us about the trail. Was it safe, and how far did it go? And I knew the trail, and I gave her as much information as I could. And she told us about herself, and she was there with her son, and he was playing ball, so she thought she'd walk. And about that time, she mentioned how good God was. And you got to know your pastor. I said, and this is my conversation too. I said, now, why did you want to go bring God up in this conversation? And she looked at me and she never cracked. She said, because God is everything. And I said, now, why do you want to say God? We had a good conversation. You brought God up. She said, well, you better bring God up too. And so, I'm messing with her. And so finally I said, now, can I convince you that, you're wasting your time with this belief? She said, no, you're wasting your time to tell me I'm wasting my time. And inside I'm having a ball. My wife is just looking at me. And finally I asked her, I told her, now listen, I'm so thankful to hear you talk like that. So strong, know what you believe, and nothing is moving you, even the difficulties that you mentioned you're going through. The Apostle Paul said, I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that he's able to keep that which I've committed to him against that day. She held firmly. And finally I told her, sis, my name is Dwight Scott. I'm the pastor of Bannister Road Baptist Church. And she said, oh, you messing with me? I said, yes, ma'am. Number one, you did move, and I want to thank God. Jesus has not ever been ashamed of us, and I think it would be so wrong for us to ever be ashamed of him. Can I say this? In the midst of all of this, in the midst of what the family has gone through, I know whom I believed, and I'm still persuaded he's able to keep that which I've committed against that day. I'm not worried. I'm even going to say like Job, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Difficult times, nobody's told you you're not going to have any. But what you got to do is, like this lady, hold on to your faith. That's why it's called faith. Well, I'm going to stop. You didn't get any much from the Bible. I wanted to talk to you personally, heart to heart. And then, if we can, next week, we'll talk at you straight from the scriptures. But I wanted to invite you into my little world tonight and let you know Pastor's doing just fine. I've got texts just before I came on, Pastor, how you doing? So I thought the best thing to do was just to communicate with you. Preacher's fine, feeling good, eating everything I want, exercising like I want. Someone said, well, let me send you something. I said, no, refrigerator is full, freezers are full. Everything we need, God has taken care of. And all I can say is thank God for you, for being so concerned and considerate. And thank God, while I didn't hear you pray, I know you prayed. I have a father who told me that I had people praying for me and for my family. And I just want to, from the very bottom of my heart, say to you, thank you. And until we see you again, this is your pastor. You have a good evening.